So just a little bit about me. I work for IBM in my day job. I don't want to talk about that too much. It's just enterprise software using Flex, Dojo, and D3 and things like that. Nighttime, whenever I have free time, anytime, I try to contribute to Apache Flex. I'm part of the Apache Flex PMC team, and I'm a Flex committer. At Apache Flex, my primary interests are Flex Mobile. I've been contributing in a few areas, bug fixing, we built new API support, Android and iOS scaling. Anything to do with scaling, visuals, FXG, SVG, interests me, so I try to contribute in those areas. You probably have used the Next SDK installer. So I kind of have been involved with that as well, and I try to record the Jenkins well. I know my friend Vivek is going to talk about all these things in tomorrow's session, being part of Apache Flex. He's go to his talk. And so there's a tool called FX Tools. I've been working on it. I use that. I built that tool as part of my own personal work, but I thought it's useful enough for the entire community to go ahead and use it. So I checked it into Apache Flex source code repo. I'll talk about that in detail. I'll probably give you a little bit of a demo of that as well. Next.js SDK interests me. I really like scaling. Scaling in charts. That's where I want to contribute. And marketing support. You can reach me bigosmaller@apache.org and on Twitter at bigosmaller. And let's quickly go through. So this today and tomorrow we have at least four sessions slash labs where we'll talk about next moment stuff. So this is the first one. The next one is going to be today at 2 p.m. It's a lab done by June. He's going to really talk about how everything comes together from ground up. So this is geared towards people new to Flex or people who've been doing enterprise Flex and want to move to doing mobile Flex development. And there's another session tomorrow at 11:30. June is going to talk about choosing your IDE, and a lot of that is going to be talking about Flex Mobile as well. And finally, we have a lab tomorrow. So in this session, I'm going to talk about the overview of what it is to build a cross-platform mobile applications. Tomorrow, it's going to be a walkthrough of what it takes to deal with Apple developer portal, how to build it, how to deploy it, how to beta test it, how to gather feedback. So this is going to be a really interesting session. Just one thing I'd like to point out, if you guys are interested in Flex Mobile development or in mobile development at all, it's a good idea to go ahead and buy the Apple developer license, the certificate. So it's $99. If you have that, tomorrow's session is going to be much more useful. I'll be able to help you set up and build your first mobile app and have it installed and run on your device. If you prefer Android, there's going to be talk about Android as well. You don't need to go through all these hoops when it comes to Android. So just something for you all to think about in terms of scheduling your 2 days here. So why are we stressing building mobile apps using Apache Flex is a great idea? So there are a lot of reasons. First thing, there's been quite a few of us who have been doing mobile applications since 2010 when Adobe started supporting it. Basically building iOS and Android apps. So there's there's a lot of misinformation out there. For example, even this morning I was talking to somebody online, and they were under the impression that you cannot build Flex applications or Flash applications for iOS, which is not true. The only thing that doesn't work is you can't take your Flash application or Flex application and run it in a browser in iOS. But if you have the same source code, you can always compile it into an iOS app, and it's going to run exactly the same or even better because it has touch and all the device capabilities. We'll be able to address that using MXML and ActionScript. So, obviously, it's cross-platform code. So you write everything, all your code is going to be in MXML and ActionScript 3 in one code base, and you will be able to target iOS and Android. Some people have been building BlackBerry apps as well. The support for that is built in. Probably well a lot about BlackBerry today and tomorrow. It's going to be mostly iOS, which has the major share in mobile, and Android, which comes a close second. And the next reason is obviously FXG and Spark scaling. Why this is important is Spark scaling brought in the concept of being able to truly separate the view from its logic, which means that you can have a single component do everything it does, but it can look in completely different ways. You can have a linear time layout, or you can have a circular layout. The only thing you have to change is the skin. The core logic is the same. Now, taking that and applying it to the mobile world, what do we have here is we have iOS look and feel, which is completely different from Android look and feel. But most of the mobile app development that's happening outside Flex and Adobe Air, people have actually two separate code bases. One in Objective-C, the other one is in Java for Android. That's fine. That's people. Some companies can afford to make this kind of an investment, but it's a nightmare to maintain it. So you need to have a lot of process in place to make sure that you can add one feature. You need to update both your iOS builds and your Android builds, QA calls, and all that. So Adobe Air kind of brings everything together, one code base, maximum reuse. Again, the another great reason is ActionScript 3. It's a fully object-oriented programming language. I don't need to sell you on ActionScript 3. I'm pretty sure you are free to use your familiar design patterns. We'll compare that to PhoneGap, for example. Nothing negative about PhoneGap. It's just a different frame of mind. Some people like to work with JavaScript, HTML, Stable View, and here you kind of avoid all that and you have a pure ActionScript programming language, object-oriented programming language, and you're free to use your familiar micro frameworks, robot.ls or the parsley or whatever. So basically, you already have an enterprise application, which means that you probably have a mobile application as well. So I'm going to go into that specifics a little bit. And as I'm going through, if you have any questions, if I'm being vague about something, please feel free to put your hands up and we can talk about your questions. Multi-resolution targeting is another big deal. So we can use CSS media queries to make the look and feel dependent upon the device's DPI. Again, we're going to dwell into that a little bit. And of course, after Adobe donated the Flex SDK to Apache, there has been a lot of improvements, primarily in the area of Flex mobile. I'm going to spend some time and giving a nice demo about some of the features that we've built here at Apache Flex. Any questions so far? There is a lot of momentum behind Adobe Air and ActionScript 3. So the first question people ask me when I say, hey, use Apache Flex and target Adobe Air, the question is, we all like to rag on Adobe, say they don't support the platform enough and things like that. But so far, what we have seen is the stats are actually pretty awesome, I have to say. They just released it a week ago that Adobe Air across desktop, iOS, Android has hit 1 billion installations, and the cream of installations are on iOS. Android comes second, and desktop comes after that. And this is just Adobe Air 3.8 and upwards. That's when they started tracking these stats. So imagine 3, 3.1, 3.2, all those things are out in the wild, and 1 billion is actually a pretty big number. Uh, and they have been 100,000 unique applications deployed. That's not a small number. And recently, like yesterday, the news came out. ActionScript enters the top 20 TOB programming community index. Essentially, ActionScript was kicked out of the top 40 around 2011. I think kind of coincided with Adobe's announcement, the big announcement that came in November. And last month, I don't know if you want to see the graph. So there's been a big uptick in that's what it is. So they actually, it's a big headline. Actually, it is top 20 in the index. So if you are at all worried about the career choices you are making, whether sticking with ActionScript is a good idea or not, this kind of gives you a good indication. And then, so the slide is going to be available up on the website. Please go through the website. This website in particular, and look at how it interacts with other programming languages. And just in the last few months, Adobe has added support for Intel-based Android devices. Just last month, I saw somebody complaining that their Flex applications works at 3 or 4 frames per second on Samsung Galaxy 3. So Samsung Galaxy 3, 2 was 1 and 2 was based on the other architecture, and with 3 onwards they are moving towards Intel. So from ARM to Intel, and performance sucked. Adobe really addressed this, which was kind of a big deal, and now it's a fully fledged supported platform. I would like to see Windows mobile devices support as well. There is a bug out there. Open has a lot of votes, but it's probably the market share needs to go up a little bit more. The other new feature added was fast compilation times for iOS apps. Adobe Air 3. Till Adobe Air 3.8 or 3.9. My application, one of the applications I built for my company I used to work for, IBM Shutterfly. So we built a mobile app in Adobe Air. It took like around 20 minutes for an app to compile for the iOS platform. So they worked on it, and they've added a new switch to your build process, and the compile times are like 10 times faster. So that's an area a lot of people complained, and Adobe listened to them, and they actually fixed it. And how many of you have started working with ActionScript workers? Show of hands. Right, so basically it's sort of multi-threading for your Flash and Flex-based applications. And for a long time, you could not use ActionScript workers with Android or even iOS. So in Air 3.9, this feature was added to the Android platform, and in the coming releases, we're going to have ActionScript workers coming to iOS as well. This is a huge deal. So essentially, combine this with capital runtime. Essentially, you are kind of set, even if Adobe's, the rate at which Adobe is updating the Air runtime, it actually goes down with workers working, and then you have Adobe native extensions. So Adobe Air is kind of a framework that gives your ActionScript code access to the device's functionality, the camera, accelerometer, time scope, and all those things. There are quite a few functionalities that Adobe Air does not support out of the box. But there is a framework called Adobe Native Extensions. In essence, you actually write an action script wrapper and you write two different interfaces, one for iOS and Objective-C, the other for Android and Java. And you actually use the Adobe Native Extension framework. You can actually target both of these extensions purely from action script. So from your app's point of view, you're still in your action script domain, but you're actually making calls at runtime to the native extensions that you have built for the specific platform. So between ActionScript workers and native extensions and the momentum behind the app, so there is a lot of positive things going on. So which is why I kind of urge people to really try this, see this for yourself, and then make a decision. So here over at one second. So over at Apache Flex, there has been a strong interest in terms of people contributing towards the mobile aspect of the Flex SDK. So number one is there's been at least a few new components. The mobile grid, for example. So the current Spark data grid, we had complaints where it does not have a smooth scrolling experience when it comes to mobile devices. Even fast devices may have some problems. Most of those issues are to do with how your item renderer is built. If you're doing a lot of stuff in your item renderer, it's going to be choppy. So this mobile grid was built ground up based on the Spark in this component to actually be really fast. I'm going to give you a quick demo of it. So some of the demos are going to be a little bit hard to see. I can probably walk by and so this is just a sample application built in Flex. This is my iPad. This is also a Retina display. So as you can see, the frame rate when it's scrolling is actually really good. Absolutely no lag, and all these item renderers, the images, they all show up really good. So there's going to be another app I'll be doing where I'm actually loading images from the internet as data is scrolling. And you can see that so there's a small frames per second counter, and it's pretty consistently at 24 frames per second. This used to be pretty bad. This used to be like 3 or 4. If you are interested, I can pass this around and you can take a look. The next major development is, so there's been interest in building the Toolkit Flex mobile app from, again, from ground up. So Adobe had their own version. They have recently created it, but there has been, we've started building a new one from ground up. So it's available over here. So this is probably something you might want to use in tomorrow's lab, for example. If you want to have a good application running on your app, Android or iOS, probably go to that website, check it out, and probably try to build it. And tomorrow the app will go over and make that happen on your device. The other big thing was iOS 7 status bar fix. So not just Apache Flex, not just Air, everybody was building iOS apps, even with Objective-C, had this issue where after iOS 7 came out, status bar would disappear or it would come up on top of the application. So this required fix. It turned out to be a pretty easy fix. We just need to figure out what was happening and kind of work the solution. So iOS 7 is now fully supported in Flex Mobile. And we added support for low-res devices all the way down to 120 dpi. This was primarily added because some folks were building applications in some country. I think the available devices were like really low power, old Android phones, and they did not have the 160 or 240 dpi that the new ones come with. So we added the 120 dpi, and then there was a request for 480 dpi, 640 dpi. So significant amount of work went into that as well. And a couple of new features. CSS media queries. So basically, if you, yeah, it's good. You can differentiate between Android and iOS and build different skins. But what if you want to build different skins for Android 2.x versus Android 4.x? So they look significantly different themselves. So we added the selector that you can build your skins depending on the device that it's actually running on. So it's kind of cool, right? I mean, again, one code base, just have a different set of skins, and you can target any Android device. Another one is device dimensions. So one particular problem people were facing was, I can, same code, the iPad demo I showed you will work the same exact way on the iPhone, right? It's a slightly different DPI, but I can detect the DPI in runtime and then actually serve a different asset. But what if I need to differentiate between whether if it's an iPad versus an iPhone, right? Again, so this new CSS media query will actually tell me the device width and height, the physical width and height. So depending on that, I can actually, for example, if it's an iPad, I can use a split view navigator. If it's an iPhone, I can use a tab view navigator because the space is going to be really nice. Again, the core logic of what your application is doing is going to be the same. You just make it look different. Again, this is just more efficient. And so there's been, personally, I've been working on getting the skinning for the Flex mobile apps up to date. So the current version of skins kind of a mix between Android 2.x and iOS 4 or 5. It's kind of a very Flex looking skin. That's the default skin. Most people, they have to go in and build their own skins, which works fine because that's what it's built for. That's what the skinning is built around. But what if you want to build a modern looking application for Android, latest Android device? So I started working on building new 4.x skins. So the good thing is, I probably like finished 10 or 12 components. The nice thing is I did not have to touch the existing component at all. All I had to do was look at the existing skin, figure out how my new skin should look like, and then build the new skin, and everything works like expected. I was surprised. I've been building things, but I was surprised that it was so straightforward. I wouldn't say it's easy, but you do not have to have two components and two skins. You have one component and multiple skins. And that's the way it was intended to work, and I don't know why I was surprised because it just worked like expected. So there is also a lot of interest for iOS 7 skins. iOS 7 probably is more recent, and my plan is to finish up the Android 4X skinning and then take on iOS 7 skinning. But if you have time, if you want to volunteer, if you know somebody who wants to contribute, this would be a great area, a very highly visible area to contribute. I'm going to go over, today I'm going to go over how to build a skin from scratch, going from Adobe Illustrator all the way to seeing it on your device. It's actually a pretty good process. And of course, the Flex SDK is the core on which the mobile components live. So all the performance fixes, all the bug fixes we've got over the last 5 releases with Apache, everything is available for your Flex mobile application as well, which is kind of the best part. We have this core SDK which is being constantly improved upon, and everybody who's sitting on top of it will be getting the benefits. Any questions about these new features. If you have, if you want to see a demo of how things work or maybe some source code, I can probably you can make me the partner and give you a demo of how things work.
Will you post all your slides afterwards?
Yes, it'll be up on our website. And,
yeah, so if you're paying attention to the Glassboard stuff, we actually have a resource page. Yeah, it's got a breakdown of all 4 of our sessions, and as our stuff becomes available, we'll be okay.
Yes,
And could I see that iPad? Maybe I can pass it around. I just want to play around.
yes. So the internet is very sketchy here. I did not account for it. So if you see something it's not supposed to happen, I blame it all on the code. And actually the same app runs on my Samsung Galaxy tab as well.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
How does the new Flex mobile stuff compare performance-wise to like Starling and running stuff on the GPU?
That's a great question. So I'm very interested in Starling. But what I've seen so far is the two factors outside of Apache Flex is happening. One is the machines are getting faster, the operating systems are getting more efficient, and actually the third factor is the load getting higher, the runtime is actually getting more better. So the same code base that I ran 2 years ago, actually on the latest devices and the latest and runtime is running so much more faster. Coming back to Starling, my personal take on it is to refactor the existing based on Starling is going to be a huge exercise. What I personally believe is, you probably heard of the FlexJS effort, FlexJS SDK. From my point of view, I keep stressing my point of view because I'm not supposed to make statements on behalf of Apache Flex as a group. Is FlexJS is a brand new SDK being built from scratch. It actually lets you build Flash applications and JavaScript applications. And it has hooks built in to actually render on different kinds of rendering environments, not devices, rendering environments. It can render on the Flash display list and it can also render on HTML dump. So we just have to be careful about how we create our component so that nowhere you get locked on one paradigm. So my kind of thinking is if I can target the Flash display list, I can actually subclass the code. There's an equivalent of UI component in XJS. I can actually subclass it and make it run on Starling display. I've been playing around with it a little bit, but nothing concrete so far. But that's a nice place to investigate. And as far as the question about will it be better in terms of performance, I'm a big fan of vector-based visuals, mostly because of multi-device targeting, multi-API targeting. You really don't want to create multiple versions of your bitmaps. That's what happens actually for most. Right? You need to create your assets for each device you're supporting, and it's a lot of work maintaining. Also, I mean, a lot of assets to make JPEGs or PNGs takes a lot of space. So I prefer doing everything in vector, like the charts you see over there. Right? They are actually all drawn in real time using the CPU. Starling is mostly about optimizing your textures. So essentially, if you have a game, all your sprites are images. How do you quickly draw it and throw it onto the GPU so that your CPU is not being used? The GPU is much faster than those kind of things. Now, if I take a typical Flex application, the ones I built, for example, I see very few bitmaps going around. A lot of it is vectors being rendered in real time. Now, one approach is to actually build the vector, draw the vectors, and use bitmap caching mechanisms. Take that and draw it onto the GPU using Starling. I have not built anything like that to actually do a side-by-side comparison as to which one is better. So there are folks who think that, for example, Alex is a big believer that the current SDK has a lot of unwanted code running, which is why things are slow. If they are perceivably slower, it's because of things we are doing in SDK that are not required. So he thinks a ground-up rework of SDK is a better route. But I want to see if I can make a difference with Starling, but nothing concrete so far.
I actually have a coworker that has built an application that you would normally build with Flex in Starling, and the performance is pretty good. But these days, as I'll mention, the newer runtimes and stuff, if you pick a release build of your application using the Flex framework, for a good 60 to 80% of the apps that are out there, it's performing enough, right? Because we're not all building games. A lot of times we're doing utility type applications, and the amount of time it took him to use Feather, which is the UI framework for Starling to build his app, when he could have just built it with Apache Flex, there was a sheer amount more time that he had to spend, and a lot of weird issues he had to deal with, weird, stage 3D and stuff, and events and stuff that he had to handle. So, pros and cons.
Next. Anything else before we move on? How are the devices? Are they holding up?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to throw it out there. There is an Apache Flex showcase where people have showcased products they have built using Flex. And so this is the URL. If you go in there, there are quite a few examples that are actually, they have links to the iTunes App Store and Google Play Store. You can download them and run it on your devices, and you can actually see how good or not bad they are on your devices. So that's a good resource.
Earlier you mentioned the number of your apps have reached like a billion, and
The installs
right, yeah, that's what I mean. My question is, how are they tracking that? Are they somehow embedded when we build an app for iOS or Android? There's like information that Apple or Google Play are tracking somehow and
Right.
back?
I think it's like two different ways. One is if you go inside the Google Play Store and you actually search for air.com.start, air.com.start, kind of gives you a listing of unless you've gone in and changed. I don't think you can change it. It shows up a list of all the stuff that you built into the page. So that's kind of a statistic that's going to be available out there. And I believe from Air 3.8 onwards, they have some sort of where it pings back somewhere, and it basically just gets counted many times. Adobe had a installed. I would definitely ask Adobe about how they moving on. So the app you're all seeing on your device is basically just to be thorough. So I have the same app running on my S3 as well. This is the same exact code base, and as you can see, the fonts they are on scale. So this is a 160 dpi device, and the iPad is a 320 dpi device. The Samsung Galaxy I think is also 160 dpi. So all the components are exactly the same. The skins are different and they are applied in a different way. I use CSS media queries to change the font size, the global font size, or the individual button font size based on the current DPI. So I know my devices, the devices I'm going to target are these three for now. So I bothered writing CSS only for these two, 160 dpi and 320 dpi. But if I know that my devices are going to run on a particular device, usually as a developer, you probably know your target audience. So you need to take that into account and write your CSS accordingly. And as always, testing on as many devices as possible is actually a very good idea. And so that is exactly what tomorrow's lab session is going to be about. Roughly, how many of you are going to attend tomorrow's lab session? Right. So thanks guys. So basically, what's going to happen is we will walk through. So have you heard of test plan app? So it's essentially a container application that lets you push your applications to your end users, be they iOS devices or Android devices. So I can have everybody, I send an invite to everybody in the audience, and invite you to install the Hockey app application, and I will be able to retrieve your device information. And for iOS devices, I need to encode your UIDs in my mobile provisioning certificate. That's the only way Apple would let me install my app on your device. I cannot willy-nilly install my IP on some random person's device, but Android can do that. If you give me your device, I can plug it in, and I hit run on Flash Builder, it will install 90% of the time, if I have the right drivers. So once we have, so tomorrow's lab session, once we have those apps installed, I'd like you to play with it like you've been right now, and we'll start collecting the statistics as to how you guys are all interacting, how you're all interacting with the application, which buttons we're playing. There is also, I'm going to have a button that lets you throw an exception once crash the application, and hopefully we'll capture all the information and we'll see it on the console on either Google Analytics or the Hockey console itself. So that's the session tomorrow. And also, if time permits, if there is interest, I will help you set up your Adobe Apple developer certificate and be able to build apps for yourself. So this is what's going to happen tomorrow. So you saw the demo of application. Let me quickly go into some best practices when you are setting up these kind of applications. So this is a lesson I learned pretty early. So before I even imagined I could build iOS Android applications, my setup of my projects were different. But having learned that I can actually target a lot of devices using the same code, this is what I would suggest everybody to follow. And June, if you have any other good practices you might want to talk about, or maybe a session. So first one is basically try to target all your devices in one place. How do you do that? So make sure all your application logic is in a common library project, text library project. Do not go to Flash Builder and build a web project or a mobile project or a desktop project. Once you do that, sharing code out in and out is going to be very hard. So I'm sure probably a lot of people do that already. You want to build multiple applications, web applications with one code base, you already do that. So keep that good practice for mobile as well. And this is just my personal tip. Even if you know you're going to build only a web application, just go ahead and build that IP project, because a year from now you never know, product manager is going to come back and say, hey, I want to get this work on a mobile device. I've had that in the past. And best is always create a Flex library project. Put all your code in that, all your new model, new controller logic. The only thing that your web project or desktop or mobile project application should be a shell that calls your main component, and not even the styles, because the styles are all in one CSS, because you can target different devices with the same style sheet. Use different, you can just use different CSS files or not, depending on your preference. Some people like to have different CSS for different iOS versus Android. I like to. I'm actually experimenting with both to see which one works. For now, I can keep everything in one CSS and then use CSS media queries to select this. And a couple of other things. There is a static class capabilities. Do not try not to build your components logic based on if it's iOS or Android or web or desktop. Ask for capabilities of whatever, right? And see if it is true, then build it. If it is not true, then work around it. And there are for almost all of the device, for almost all of the features, there is a dot is supported boolean available. So at that time actually tells you you can say if accelerometer is supported, then do this. If it is not supported, no matter what device it is, it can be an iPad 1 or an Android. You can actually use that to write your logic easily.
Yeah, so just based on the second to last bullet, we have x86 support for Android now. So you got to be a little careful with capabilities dot. We used to be able to say CPU architecture, but now we're not going to be able to. The other thing is there's capabilities.os, and some versions of Android are actually going to report to Linux. So if you're trying to like distinguish between desktop and mobile, you can't really use that. So it's getting really, really sticky to do that. I don't actually have the 100% answer, but those are things to keep in mind when you're trying to go across the buttons.
Right, so at Apache Flex, what we've been trying is to make it easier for the end users.
There's actually a technological release of Apache Flex as an option that does that.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to tell folks. So basically, as I was saying, we kind of abstracted out that information, created a class for it, and all this information and any kind of discrepancies we will encounter in the future, we try to resolve it in the SDK itself. Thanks for that. I kind of forgot to add that as well. I'll probably update the slide before we put it up on the website. Very quickly, what we doing on time?
You got like 12 minutes.
12 minutes. Right. So setting up your projects, I want to quickly walk through this example app that we saw and look at how my projects go. So sorry. So this is technology, all of the projects. Let's just give it. So this is the mobile grid example. This code is already available on our AS docs. I just lifted it out of it with this example. So the Twitter Threads application actually uses this common Flex library project. Essentially, I was tempted to use partially, but I decided not to do that. I just use a very simple mediator panel, which lives in this class. Essentially, all it does is let different areas of the application communicate with each other, just using the events and the public APIs. So, as you can see, pretty much all my code, everything that I need. So, I use Alchemy API, that's a third-party service provider that lets me do trend analysis for text. So I give it a text and it actually, not a sentiment analysis, it will tell me if it's a negative thought or a positive thought. So basically, I have an API class that communicates with that web service, and I have a hockey API. Again, this is the app. This is the API that lets me get feedback from either node of communication. And this is you'll see that in your dashboard. And I have the Twitter API. Basically, the Twitter API comes from a third-party library. It's available on GitHub. The problem with that is it's outdated. It's not updated to support Twitter's 1.1 API. It's still 1.0. So I was able to download the source code. I went and fixed pretty much everything to start using the Twitter 1.1 API. If there is interest, I'll actually put it up on GitHub and full platform on GitHub. And my actual mobile application is just this project. This is a fixed mobile application project. And I have two classes, Flex, mobile Android, mobile iPad. And essentially, right now there is really no difference between these two, because all the magic happens in the code component over here, and this is actually in my web path. The Twitter trends is actually in my web path, and everything comes from it. And that's pretty much it. And my Twitter trends common is like the ring application. It has all the other dependencies it needs, and that's pretty much it in terms of how the application, the projects are set up. Let me go back to the presentation. Again, because of the available amount of time, I'm going a little bit faster. If you want to grab the recorder and have a detailed look at this code base, that's definitely possible as well. I'm going to clean this up a little bit and put this up on my GitHub repo. You're all free to download and use this as well. The only things I need to go on my Twitter consumer keys, I'm not supposed to put in the code, but I'll actually clean it up and put it in the Yeah, so there has been a lot of questions on the mailing list, and other forums. A couple of people asked me here this morning about skinning. So what I'm going to do is quickly take a look at the workflow that I use because I've done the process of creating Android Flex skins. I can actually show you how I'm going about doing that, and let's go back to So essentially, I start out, so building a new skin, make my flexible skins. So all of the Flex mobile skins are based off a single class, mobile skin. That takes care of a lot of things for you from in terms of managing the states, layout, adding APIs on layout, sizing, and all those things. And all the skins that you see in the SDK today are actually external. So my process is like this. You can use Illustrator, or you can use there's an open source tool. Okay, kind of it's coming back to me. It's an open source tool where you can actually build your skins in SPG and actually convert them to FXG, and you can use that instead as well. But if you have an Illustrator or Flash Pro, this is probably the best way to use skins. So this is a stencil that I downloaded on Google's design portal, Google's Android design portal. So they have an official set of components look and feel, and they give you a very good idea of how your components are in Android 4.x should look like. And they have these stencils available as Illustrator files, Photoshop files, or Arling tab, things like that. So basically, I take that, I look at each component, and I look at my current skin. For example, let's talk about checkbox. The checkbox has a few states. So if I go to checkbox again, I'm going for 1 second to finish my screen, so I have to go to screens. So this is my checkbox screen class, and this is the new one that I did. So I know that by looking at the whole screen, I know that I have to have icons for up selected, down selected. There's a symbol attached to the check mark for up state, and a symbol for up state selected, and down selected symbol, and down symbol. So essentially, if I type my Illustrator file, pretty much I have all the states here, and maybe they have over here, and probably have 2 states that we don't really need. So I just pick this one, and then I just drag and drop it into the symbols library over here. So for each symbol, I just have to create an equivalent symbol over here. Just notice that it comes with scale grid, nice scale grid. We'll see why this is important if you look at multi-resolution targeting. So all these scales are actually built from this stencil, all these assets. The best part about this Illustrator is I can actually go and save this file as an FXG file. So anyway, 5.5 still supports it. One of the versions is still available, and you can still save to FXG. So once you save it as FXG, let's look at how FXG looks like. So this is the FXG file. It's basically, FXG is something like SVG. You specify all the visuals in the form of XML, and it's all vector based. And inside the compiler, it's basically for each and every node you see over here, there is an equivalent class that has a graphics object, and it draws the solid color, line, circle, ellipse, and all those things. So this is really not so good because it has a lot of map that Adobe Illustrator adds. So that is where this tool that I went write FXG comes through. So basically, not pretty, but I'm not in a state to make a release out of this. But essentially, what this does is it opens up the raw FXG file, and it walks through each and every symbol in the symbol library. It creates a new file for each of them and gives it the private power extension and goes inside the definition and removes the unwanted groups. So if you look at the current Flex SDKs, mobile skins, FXG assets, there are a lot of groups, nested groups, which is an artifact from Adobe Illustrator. So the tool actually goes in and optimizes it and makes a really performant, usable skin. So it actually splits out the individual ones like this. And this is all a one-click process. So if you look at the checkbox skins, so this is just the symbol in XML for the visual that you created, that you saw on the screen. And once this is done, basically you copy all these things, put it in your assets directory, and when we look at the skin, you actually set the up icon as checkbox up. So these are actually inside the Flex SDK, inside the IDE, they're actually classes. So you can refer to them, you can instantiate it into FXG, directly add to the display list. So that is how that's how these guys work. So as you can see, they actually refer to as class names. So and your mobile skin, the base class is going to take all these class definitions and instantiate them and there you go. So you have your stencil which came from the source, which came from the Android design team at Google, and you take your symbols, your FXG, you run this tool that creates your FXG files like how Flex SDK expects, and you put it in and have a sample application that shows you a few of the skills. So this app runs the mobile skills. So you have your navigator, action bar, your button, your skin for checkbox and all those things. This is the current state of the skin. This is why that's basically looks outdated and it requires an update. Now, if I run the same thing on my new application, basically I just point it to a different CSS file. And if you go inside the CSS file, I think I'll just show you. It's actually the same exact code base. It just uses a different CSS integration. And these are all user interface elements that actually conform to Android 4.x, Google's own guidelines. This is all based on just skinning. I did not make one change to the component. Everything is done by Illustrator, FXG, and I just had to. And actually, if you look at this on a device, it looks much more better because the high resolution. This is probably 72 or 60 ppi on my monitor. Probably not necessarily on the projector. But if you look at these components on a device, it looks so much better. So this is kind of probably a few of the components that have been skins for. This is the general idea. We want to modernize the Flex mobile experience, but it's really a lot. It's not really a lot of work. It's just getting the skins to make it look like how iOS 7 or Android 4 advising us to do it. It's a relatively straightforward process, and you can obviously go in and in your own, you get your iOS apps designer, and let me see the thumbs up. Give me one more minute, and you can get them to build all your assets in Adobe Illustrator. You use the same process and you have your own look and feel for your own tools. I think that's all we have time for today. I hope you guys learned something, and I look forward to seeing you in my Tuesday session and my lab session. Any questions? And feel free to grab me in the corridor if you have questions or if you want to take any of these demos or take a close look at the demos on the social media. Alright? Thank you so much.